Hi guys, Lynn Cox here, stress and performance anxiety expert. I'm hopping on from the stairs here, just getting a little workout in. God, it's gorgeous weather here in Calgary today. Anyway, I love going back to classic books. So I don't know if anyone else finds this, but I had this conversation with a fellow RTT colleague of mine and I, just saying that our discussion was around the fact that some of the most effective healing modalities that are out there, they're all just basically different ways to hack the subconscious and change our perceptions, because really the bulk of human experience, regardless of the issue, there's a lot of glare from the sun, relates to our perceptions. So one of my favorites is the 4 Agreements. I first read it in 2012, so a long time ago, and I have it on audiobook, so I listen to it every once in a while, and you always get something new from something when you listen to it. Anyway, I want to talk about the first agreement. So, first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. So when he explains this first of the 4 agreements, and I believe he has a new book with a 5th agreement, he talks about the fact that this is the most powerful agreement, that if you can stick to this agreement above all the others, you can live an entirely different type of life. So interesting, because we don't often go back to root sources of words. So the word impeccable, he states, comes from the Latin word peccaris, which means to sin, and the im means to not. So to not sin. And that's not meant in the way of, religious sin, like you're a bad person, you're a sinner. What's meant by sin in this instance is basically anything that we do to turn against ourselves or away from ourselves. So from the perspective of being impeccable with your word, he's talking about the importance of language, which creates ideas, beliefs, and perceptions, to make a commitment to be impeccable with all of your words. Firstly, the ones that you're using with respect to yourself, and then the ones that you put out there. Always important to start with the self, though, because typically, most of us are familiar with that phrase, hurt people hurt people. Typically, if you are somebody who has a healthy sense of yourself, who truly and legitimately loves and appreciates yourself and is kind to yourself, you're far less likely to gossip or to say, mean words towards others. So it does always begin with the self. And, he gives a couple of good examples. He actually uses the example of Hitler being able to cast spells of fear over an entire population through the use of language and propaganda. So that's quite an extreme case. He also talks about an example of a mother who came home really stressed out and irritable, and her young girl was singing and excited, and and the mother in her frustration, typically overall a generally nice person, snapped out, shut up, I don't want to hear you sing, or something to that effect. And it had a spin-off effect on that young girl. She thought her voice was ugly. She became self-conscious of herself, inhibited in speaking in front of people. I actually gave the example of somebody who I've spoken to who at a young age was criticized by an older sister having spelling errors in a letter she wrote. And after that criticism, she vowed to not write again. She had really loved to write prior to that, and didn't write anymore as a result of that criticism. So we need to be really careful with our words. Words are so powerful. Words carry an energy, and I think that if we have the opportunity just to slow down our thoughts and pay attention and to listen to what it is that's going on in our mind with respect to ourselves. And I've talked about this before as well too. If you have trusted close friends or trusted close family members, just to ask them to take note of what you're saying about yourself and to yourself out loud. So it starts with ourselves, and the goal is to build basically such a robust, deeply caring and loving perception of yourself. And that's not to say that you don't take responsibility for your actions, for your mistakes, but there's a way to do that, to learn from things and to move on, to be able to forgive yourself and know that to be human is to err, but we all learn, and to really work on changing that language that you're using towards yourself and those ideas, And unfortunately, it is a fact that a lot of kids who grow up to be adults maybe don't have good, positive, loving, kind, nurturing people around them who are going to help implant those words and ideas that help people build that strong, loving, caring sense of self. But as my teacher always says, and I believe her because I've seen it time and time again, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. Even if that programming was laid down at a young age, it is totally possible to reprogram. Hypnotherapy, getting down to your programming and using repetition as well as alpha or theta brainwave states when you're highly suggestible, that's a place where you can start to create new beliefs about yourself. So even a great place to start is look around at people. You may know them, you may not know them. They could be figures in history, but look around at people whose qualities you really admire and name those qualities and take the time to put the languaging around what is it about those qualities that you find so compelling. Force yourself to use the words, to find as many words and words that resonate with you. You'll know the words when they come to you or when you search them out. If language is not your thing, use the tools of, thesaurus online to find different words and find those words that resonate. Look at these people who you admire for their virtues, their qualities, map that out, and then start to talk to yourself using that language, and use that in a repetitive way. You can have posters around, reminders. You can do things like have a hypnotherapy session or an RTT session and start to let those words and that soothing, positive, loving, invigorating, enlivening language come into your life. And it'll definitely have an effect. And so many of our thoughts are repetitive. We're not even aware of them, like 60,000 per day. I believe it is, give or take, that are on autopilot. But you can make an effort to start to pay attention and notice. And one thing I do, because I have certain habitual judgments that come up, or language that I don't necessarily want to be using, whether I'm thinking the words or saying them out loud. And one habit I have is when I notice it, I just say immediately, cancel that. Cancel that idea, cancel that language. I just say, cancel that. And it really has helped me change the way on a day-to-day how I speak, think, and also lay judgment on myself and other people. You know, other things you can do, visual reminders, like I said, create a poster board of some of these magnificent words that are inspiring to you and have them up and around you where you see them often. And maybe wear a colored elastic around your wrist, and when you notice yourself, you know, reverting back to old patterns and habits, you can, don't hurt yourself, but snap yourself out of it, so to speak. But, you know, I really think that he is correct, that impeccability of the word is the single most important agreement to master. We're not taught this from a young age, and it's a shame. And you know, many of us are under the impression that, well, words are just words and what we say isn't that meaningful, but you're constantly creating and also reestablishing your perception of yourself, of other people, of the world around you. So if you want to live in a state that's feels a little more invigorating, peaceful, joyful, loving, you're going to have to change your language, which then changes your thoughts, beliefs, perceptions. So I absolutely love this book. I'm going to be talking about the other agreements later on this week, but just remember, be impeccable with your word. It means to not sin, but what that really means is to not turn against yourself, or another way I've heard that word used is just to miss the mark. So if what you want is a life where you feel happier with yourself, better about yourself, more accepting and loving towards yourself, and then in turn towards others, really watching your words is the way to go. So those are my thoughts for today. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful day, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Bye.